Okay, well, it looks like we have everyone here. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jerry Cooper. I am the project manager for Special Assessment Districts. We also have on the line from the city, Assistant Public Works Director Steve Howlett. He is in charge of the Special Districts Division, which you all are a part of. I'd like to thank you for taking the opportunity to join this meeting today. We are looking forward to working with the group for solutions that meet the needs of your communities in River Ridge and Country Club Estates. And with that, I will turn it over to Danielle Wood and Pablo Perez with CivicMic.
Thank you, Jerry. I am Danielle Wood with CivicMic, and I know I've spoke to a couple of you on the phone, maybe more through email, but thank you for joining us here today. It's good to see so many faces, actually, and so many of you that are looking to make a difference in your community. We like to see that, as we've said in our other meeting, and you'll hear over and over throughout today's meeting, high participation is a win for us, and it's a key to success for this effort. So for those of you who attended the first meeting, some of this will be repeat information, so I'll try and cover it quickly. But the city hired CivicMic to assist with public engagement efforts for your community. Our main focus is to help communities work with government and other organizations to work together and realize sustainable visions for your community's future. Many of you have signed up on CivicMic.com already and may have known about this meeting before the postcards hit the mail. But for those of you who haven't, please visit CivicMic.com, scroll to the bottom of the page and sign up for community updates. That's the best way, most reliable, fastest way that we can get information to you about your community's ReNew Oxnard program. Once you're there, I think Pablo's scrolling there so you can see exactly where you can go and sign up there. Just click on your community and add your information below and hit subscribe. This way, every time we post something new, we provide new information, you will get an email update with that information. And like I mentioned, the meeting agenda, meeting login information, all of that will be submitted to you or sent over to you. So once you've signed up, you can also visit your neighborhood news by neighborhoods and read specific information about your neighborhood maintenance assessment district. We have tons of information on here, from formation details, budget information, everything that is going on with this team that we're talking about today will be in this section. So please visit it, become familiar with it. That way, if you have questions about something that was covered, you can go back here and see all the newest information. So the city is focusing on representing your voice. There's a lot of talk about what the city's trying to do here, and what they're trying to do is understand your priorities when making decisions. So community participation will help influence policy-making decisions, and we need a lot of participation for that to happen. The city doesn't want to waste your money or your time, so we are really trying to find out what it is that this community finds valuable before we move forward. So this meeting's set up in the form of a workshop. We'll cover a large amount of information that's specific to your community, not like the last meeting that covered an overview of all the various districts. This is specific to your community. I have a couple ground rules that I'll cover really quick. We're going to try and keep the meeting to right around an hour in case you'd like to, or you need to hop off before the meeting's over. This will be recorded and shared on CivicMic.com. We will answer questions throughout the workshop. Save the chat feature for questions, and when you're submitting to the chat, you can submit to everyone. You have the option to submit just to the presenters, but if you submit to everyone, then everyone can see it there. If you do not get your question answered, or you have additional questions that come up, there'll be contact information at the end of the presentation. You can go to CivicMic.com, email us directly, We have a 1-800 number. It's 1-800-676-7516. Call Pablo or Danielle at any time to ask questions about this effort. So with a meeting this size, we want everyone to be able to hear the presentation. So we will mute all participants. If you see that you are removing the mute button and we place you back on mute, that's intentional because we want to limit background noise while the presentation is going on. This process, as I mentioned, aims to gather feedback from various demographics and diverse values. So we'd like to hear from all participants. We know that many of you have different opinions, and we will make every attempt to shield you from personal attacks or slander. So if someone is using foul language or making personal attacks, we will remove you from the meeting and place you in a private meeting room to give you some time to regain your composure. Once that's happened, we'll allow you back into the meeting. If that continues, we will remove you from the meeting and you will not be allowed to rejoin. So we don't anticipate that happening. Just want to be clear that that's how the process will work if that does happen. With that being said, we will move on to the good stuff, the workshop portion that will be presented by Pablo Perez from CivicMic. Pablo?
Alrighty. Let me get a couple of things here on the screen. And Danielle, if you can please take over the hosting duties, appreciate that. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Pablo Perez. I may have met many of you over the years. Been working with the City of Oxnard and the Landscaping Maintenance District for some time, back in 2015 and 16, and through 17. I went through the city and met on site, which is what we have been doing this time. But unfortunately, due to COVID, we all had to learn how to use Zoom, and we have gotten really good at it. So thank you for taking the time to participate in this meeting. Today's meeting, it's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon because that's what we heard from the survey as the best time or during the day. But, you know, other meetings can be held at another time if that works best for everyone. I know that some people work and, you know, 6 o'clock is usually when we have these meetings. I think one thing we can all agree on is that the public improvements around your neighborhood are in much need of repair and a higher level of ongoing maintenance. I think the improvements inside of your neighborhoods are doing much better, but definitely the exterior medians and parkways need help. The team here believes that there is an opportunity here to turn areas in Oxnard around for the better. That's why we're doing this. We believe that by doing so, we can actually improve the lives of many of the residents in the city. And we would love to be a part of a success story that can then be replicated throughout the city. And so how do we do this? Well, we plan on doing this by first engaging and informing you about the issues. We plan to be your advocate, work with the city, and together create a viable solution. What do solutions look like? I get this question a lot. Well, it really depends on each community. At the previous meeting, which was an introductory meeting, we talked a lot about residents being involved when possible, and even doing maintenance work or events like cleanup work and so on. And that can work for some communities, but it's not for everybody, right? So really, that's what we're doing these meetings now individually to determine what kind of involvement there is going to be from community to community to devise a solution that works best. Some communities may want to involve an existing HOA, form a new HOA, or involve a nonprofit organization, as is happening already with one of the communities, where there's someone that has a real good connection for making the community a pet project on drought-resistant plants, right? So that's a great opportunity for them. There's someone there who knows somebody who knows someone, right, to make things happen. And we would love to have that opportunity to put that into action. Other communities may rely heavily on the city to manage and perform all the work. But regardless, the ideal solution has to result in a better partnership than what we have today between the city and its residents. In my opinion, the best case for success and a viable solution means that the city is going to be represented by a special districts division. This division, which you probably know Jerry Cooper is a part of, is a small group of city employees dedicated solely to the implementation of whatever solution comes out of this effort. They are responsible for what's happening in the interior of the communities through the landscaping districts. And also the involvement of the residents a small group, some citizens committee that we plan to form as part of this effort that will work with the Special Districts Division on an ongoing basis to streamline communications and ensure the long-lasting partnership. Please know that we're not searching for a cookie-cutter solution or a one-size-fits-all. Instead, we're meeting with you individually to ascertain what works best for you. There's a lot of options and a lot of ways to structure additional financing or volunteering involvement. There's a lot of things that can be done. One of the things we would love to do is to consolidate efforts, right? You will notice that today we have River Ridge here, Country Club Estates, Cypress Point, and a section that is on the south part of Country Estates. And that's because we're trying to create an area that will maximize efficiencies, economies of scale, and we're hoping that will ultimately save money, right? It will save in maintenance costs and on a per unit basis, and also administrative costs. What we anticipate is not a fast outcome. We're looking for steady progress through multiple workshop meetings, right? We anticipate the creation of a citizens committee early in this process, as early as tonight, right, or today. We're looking for volunteers. So if you'd like to be involved, we will provide the email address for Danielle where you can email Danielle and let her know that you would like to be part of the citizens committee.
Pablo, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can you check just to make sure that I'm shared host on this?
Oh, that's a good idea. You know, that would be really good if I did that.
Thank you.
There you go. Now you are. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you.
We will need everyone's assistance in sharing information with other residents. Last I counted, I think we had around 30 people here today. As you know, the communities have many, many parcels. A lot more people need to be involved so that when they receive that ballot or the documents, whatever it is that we end up with, they have been participating in the process. They understand it. They know what we are pursuing, right? Along the way, we will support your efforts, particularly the efforts of the Citizens Committee, with online and printed materials for dissemination and additional information and meetings. Just work through that process until we can get to implement that solution. Most importantly, we will work with the city to vet these solutions and prepare cost estimates for your review and further discussion. We expect multiple iterations of this process, right? We'll come back with a new budget, run some estimated rates, see what it looks like, and then taking everything into account, including citizen involvement, how that saves money, and so on and so on. And we'll keep doing it until we find that consensus. We need consensus because anything we take to vote is going to require a 2/3 vote of the registered voters. 2/3 is a very, very high threshold. So as you can imagine, we really need to find a solution that everybody's on board with. For today's agenda, we'll just do a quick review of where your property tax dollars are currently going, an overview of this special districts division, a review of this proposed geographical area that we're starting with, again, to achieve economies of scale. We'll share what we heard from you on the survey, your shared interest to improve the community, the desired outcomes for discussion, the level of desired citizen involvement for discussion, and then next steps, okay? With that said, I'm gonna start with the presentation here. See if I can get a pointer. Very good. Team 310, we just couldn't figure out how to name it, but 310 refers to River Ridge and Country Club Estates. As you can see in this map, and I'll show you more maps, this area in red around Gonzales, Patterson, Vineyard, all the way down to Ventura is comprised of the River Ridge LMD currently, LMD 10, which is Country Club Estates, this Cypress Point area that used to have a maintenance district, and then this area south of Country Club Estates that really doesn't have an LMD, and I don't think it has in the past. I may be wrong, but that's what I recall. So that's the team that we're starting with. The idea here is that if we're going to create or improve the exterior improvements, we'd love to have that from a major intersection like Gonzales here in Ventura, all the way down to Patterson, all the way up to Vineyard and around, right? So we'd like to create a big block where when you arrive to this area, from that moment on, you have arrived in your oasis, right? The nice, pretty area surrounding your community before you get into your community. So that's sort of the plan. Ideally, that's what we're looking for. Currently, we have a couple of active assessment districts here. So I'll go through that real quick. Country Club Estates and River Ridge are both receiving a B level of service, right? A B level of service is not bad. That's actually pretty good. I have other communities that are receiving an F level of service, right? So our website, and I'll share later the link. And again, everything you're seeing here today, including the video, will be made available to you through our website, through a post. You will, if you have signed up to receive notifications, you will be notified so you can access all that information within the next week. But these are service levels that are clearly defined, B being second highest here. Unfortunately, notice that these two districts don't have an inflator, right? They were formed in 1988, 1986. There's no provision for an inflator, and the city has no option about that. That's not something we can change without a vote, right? Effectively, these assessments back in the day were formed this way, and it made sense then when the city could actually increase rates by city council action. But in 1996, that all ended with Proposition 218. City cannot do that. And in fact, I hear this a lot where the city's going to raise my taxes. I can share with you, I've been doing this for almost 30 years. So I've seen it from when the city could do that, any city in California. That's just not going to happen anymore. Proposition 13, 218, and 26 have effectively blocked all that. Everything needs to go to a vote. So we cannot do inflators. We cannot do anything without consulting with you first and you casting a ballot. So looking at this on the surface, it doesn't look too bad, right? You're getting a B level. You don't have an inflator. But there's some concerns. Again, this is only for the interior, right? Inside only. The stuff on the exterior is not being maintained by these two districts at all. It's maintained by the city through the general fund, or I heard in some cases for maybe Cypress Point, the HOA may be taking care of some of that. So the city's not really doing a great job at all on the exterior, but on the interior, through the Special Districts Division, if you look at this annual cost of $24,000, you compare that to this maximum amount. This is the max that can be collected from Country Club Estates. That means they're just hanging on by a thread, right? The next time we get a water rate increase, which is very likely, that has been a problem, this district is going to be in trouble where this level of service is going to have to drop to C in the interior. River Ridge is doing much better. I say that because even though you can see this budget is also basically the maximum assessment is still funding a B level, there is enough in the reserves. You can see this balance of $170,000 that will carry River Ridge for a little bit, right? In the interior, it does nothing for the exterior improvements. You cannot use these assessment districts for the exterior improvements. So then a lot of questions, we get this a lot. Where is the money going, right? Because you pay for your assessment, which we show, and then you pay your property taxes, generally speaking, your 1% tax, right? And I don't know if everybody knows, but I did mention this in the previous meeting, and I'm going to go even deeper into it. For every dollar that you pay on your 1%, so this is the one based on the value of your home. So let's say your assessed value is $500,000, take 1% of that. And this is how it gets sliced, right, and distributed. Notice that the City of Oxnard gets 17 cents on the dollar, give or take, 18 cents sometimes, 17, 16. On average, 17 cents. That sounds like, okay, well, they're getting 17 cents. Everything else is going to the county, the schools, and other departments. Again, the city does not have anything they can do. They have no options here. This is the allocation. That's how it goes, right? And they're not unique, by the way. In fact, Oxnard is probably doing better than many cities. If you're a city like Wildomar or Menifee that were incorporated not too long ago, they're zero. They don't get any money at all from the 1%. So what happens to that 17 cents? Well, let's take a closer look. So what I did is I actually went into your database, county database from the assessor's office, and actually sample your properties, right? These are real tax rate areas for Country Club, real tax rate areas for River Ridge, and these are your real rates. In the previous slide, it was an average of 17 cents. It is actually a little higher for River Ridge. So properties in River Ridge, when you pay your 1%, the city gets 18 cents, almost 19 cents on the dollar. So let's sample the highest, one of the highest ones I found. This is a home that the county shows us $887,000 worth. It's a nice home, I will imagine. Probably a recent sale. And I say that because the homes in size, even though they're similar, the lowest one there is around 319,000. I imagine somebody who's been living there for a little while. Let's take the big one. The 1% will be about $8,800, which is a lot of property taxes. And that doesn't include other items like your assessment. Just the 1%, $8,000 is a lot of money a year, right? That's per year. Everything here is per year. Everything I show on my slides, by the way, is per year, okay? Unfortunately, of that, the city only gets $1,600. Okay, well, that's still pretty good for the city, right? Goes to the schools. But the first thing that happens, and this is not unique to Oxnard, and I see that I have a fire staff here, police and fire together represent about 65% of the general fund budget. That is very, very typical. And many of my clients, we assume that it's going to be on 60 to 70%. So the first thing that happens is the $1,600, 65% of that goes to police and fire. And this is what remains annually from this one parcel, about $57 a month, to pay for all the other services the city provides to you, not including water and sewer, because water, sewer, trash, these are enterprises that are separate, right? They're not part of the general fund. So that's an example of the highest one here. That's what it looks like, right? So at the end of the day, yes, it's $8,000, but after public safety, really only $679 are going to the general fund. So let me show a little slide. On a monthly basis, really, when you compare it to utilities, it's really not a lot of money at $57 a month. We move forward and say, okay, fine. What happens at the city level, right? City has a $140 million budget, of which immediately 63 and 20 million, about 83, goes to public safety. Remaining general fund money available or for use in their budget is 57 million. Well, to run the city, it takes about $23 million in all these administrative departments. Then you take the community development, the library, housing, and all that is about $21 million off. And what's left is about $13 million for public works, which is really everything we talk about in this meeting. And the ReNew Oxnard program is really a public works effort, right? However you look at it. It's for street resurfacing, landscaping, lighting, parks, all that comes from here, which is why you need assessments and additional charges. Something I neglected to say at the beginning is that your communities, and I'm going to go back there just to make sure I cover this. Country Club Estates, River Ridge, formerly Cypress Point, had the same. When the developer came to town, the reason you have a landscaping maintenance district is because that was a condition of development. From the very, very get-go in 88 and 86, the city's general fund was not supposed to pay for the exterior perimeter improvements or the interior improvements at all. That's how the development was allowed to proceed. It was under the condition that an assessment district will be formed for the residents to pay for it. Now, it's very convenient because the developer is in town, right? They sign the papers and then they sell the homes and you take this on. That's how that works. It works the same for every city. So it's really important to put it in perspective that the general fund was never, ever, ever intended to pay for your exterior improvements or your interior improvements. This was all supposed to be funded by you, unfortunately, through the assessment district. And one of the reasons is because really the city sort of anticipated that they just couldn't afford it anyway. And it's very typical. You see this throughout California. That is, again, it's not unique to Oxnard. You will see this in basically all of our clients that have assessment districts, right? That's how development occurs these days. They're conditioned on forming some sort of a special district. So down to $13 million available for all this work. And so what is that, right? So we take a look at some of that stuff because I went into the budget looking for, okay, what is under Oxnard's belt here? Well, they have 453 miles of streets to maintain. If you had a chance, please read the CIP, which is the Capital Improvement Program published in April of 2020. I have posted it to our website. Again, these links will be made available to you. But it's a really, really interesting document because it talks about the condition of your roads, which is not really good. It's measured through something called a PCI index. And currently, whatever is hovering around 59 or 60, once it gets to 50 to 55, what starts happening is that you really can no longer maintain that road with just a 1-inch overlay. You need to take it all out and start all over again. So in order for the city just to keep it the way it is, which is not optimal, you want to be around 70, it will cost about $11 million a year To improve that, it will cost about $15 million a year. That's 453 miles of road in the city. A thin overlay. So let's talk about that, because, okay, the way to maintain these roads in keeping, keep all those high costs away is to do a 1-inch overlay. Well, that's also very, very expensive. These are $2017. You can see La Colonia, Fremont North, these neighborhoods, it was about $1.3 million to do La Colonia. Victoria Avenue from the south end to the north end, it's about $1.4 million for just a 1-inch of overlay. It's a very, very expensive. City parks, so we move away from streets and we look at city parks. Well, there are 53 of them, 370 acres to maintain. We have another city sports courts that needs about almost $4 million of investment that the city doesn't have. This is a little summary of what your city's capital improvement program looks like. It's approximately needs $470 million of investment, which the city does not have, right? Remember, we have a $140 million budget down to $13 million in public works, and really no way for the city to get any more money because they just simply cannot raise your taxes. You look at the medians and the parkways. So I get this question a lot about, well, how is the city maintaining the medians and parkways, what we call the exterior, the perimeter around your community? It's coming from the general fund, but they have 129 acres of that to maintain. I want to say the schedule right now, this is through parks, it's about once a year. So if you see someone working on a median, on a palm tree, cleaning debris or whatever it is, you're not going to see them there for another year. That is just not something you can sustain. You wouldn't do that at your home with your landscaping, and that's why it looks the way it does, right? It's in really bad shape. The trees are in trouble throughout the city. There are 56,000 trees. It's a great investment at about $163 million worth of trees. 1,100 of them are dead. And then the current tree cycle, trimming cycle is about 60 years. That's because the city just can't afford it to do it any sooner, which is the reason why they're on triage. Last I heard, they're basically trimming the branches that are falling on the middle of the road. That's all they can do. They're behind all the time. It's a safety issue. I was just watching a video about these eucalyptus trees that were cut on Rose Avenue, I believe. So it's really sad because it's a huge investment. This city, like many others, many of our clients were built on these huge, beautiful trees and grass areas that really at the time made sense in the 80s, but today it just doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Water is too expensive. And so they're hard to maintain. And in a city that cannot even afford to trim them, well, it's really a safety hazard. So that's a major problem. That just gives you a little perspective of what's going on in the city of Oxnard and how important it is that you take ownership of your own improvements, including the exterior. So ideally, what I want to see at the end of this is some solution that captures all of that, and you become this pocket, right? That when we drive to the city, we can see, okay, all of this looks very beautiful, knowing that, yes, the rest of the city needs a lot of help, right? Now, recently, you passed a sales tax increase. I have a question here. Yeah, I'm going to actually address this. Could you please distinguish between exterior and interior? Okay, that's a good question. I'll do it now before I move on too far. So the interior means when you enter, let me actually switch over here if I can take this down for a little bit. I'm going to go back here. So exterior improvement, let me put it on a little imager here. Okay, there, that looks better. I hope you can all see this. So when we talk about exterior, we're looking at everything on the perimeter around Patterson, on the outside. Everything here is exterior. A lot of times you have a wall, right? And then you have these trees along the way. Sometimes you have medians. That's what we call exterior. That is general fund right now once a year, right? Everything on the outside. So even though it may be touching, right, your homes on the backside, that is exterior. Interior is stuff inside like Bermuda dunes here, anything inside of the streets that is maintained by the city, that is interior. And that is the landscaping and lighting district at the service level B. And I hope that makes sense and everybody got that part. You can see a lot of it here on Spyglass. Everything on Gonzales will be exterior. Everything on Ventura is exterior, even though it may be touching the back of your home, right? So this...
Pablo, yeah. Real quick, however, just to clarify that only certain streets within the interior are authorized improvements within the district. So right. That doesn't mean that every single street within your district is necessarily maintained by your assessment district.
Correct. Yeah. And that's another thing. And we have maps of all of that available at the city website and our website that shows you in the interior what is a city tree, right, maintained by the LMD or not, right? Okay, I hope you find that helpful. Thank you, Jerry. Okay, let's go back here to the slide. Okay, sales tax. Recently, the city did pass Measure E, an increase in sales tax that, in theory, after COVID, will provide some real good money. Right now, this is COVID years. Is who knows what's happening anymore. But when we looked at this, we're like, well, yes, it is possible that over time, the city, you can see they have a restoring landscaping services here, right? That over time, Measure E will produce sufficient funds to really help you, particularly on the exterior and all that, parks and all that. Unfortunately, I feel like this may be a long wait that your improvements cannot really afford, right? So there are ways to address this, right? Our proposal is that we move forward with a solution, something that fixes your problem today. And we can always do things like setting a sunset, right, into whatever funding mechanism we create. We see this a lot with public business improvement districts where they go for 5 years and they have renewal periods of 10, all subject to your vote, right? So absolutely something like that can be structured. That's not an issue. So we could say, okay, we're going to do something for the next so many years. And then in order to continue, that needs to go out to a vote. That will give you that peace of mind knowing that, okay, if Measure E money comes along and is able to improve things, that you can make that decision then. But in the meantime, you restore the landscaping and all these improvements. The work we're doing through this program should be all managed what we call the Special Districts Division. That is Jerry Cooper here. Steve Howlett is here on the call as well. This division was created in about 2016 or so, 17, after we performed a full audit of the landscaping maintenance districts in 2014-15, right? And we created it because the city really needed a dedicated group to manage the LMDs, the maintenance districts, and to ensure that the money collected through what you currently pay, which we show on the first slide, is be used only for those improvements, which we call the interior improvements, right? So the same way we want to make sure that whatever solutions come out of this, they're managed by this division so that you have somebody that you can hold accountable, somebody you can talk to, versus just spread out through the organization. The city does have a lot of employees. This is a very small division. That's their only job, right? So I think that's very important for transparency and accountability. Let's talk a little bit about this geographical area. I think I touched on it a little bit, but again, this is just a proposed area, right? We are, this is part of what the Citizens Committee we hope to form is going to help us with, is to kind of work out the kinks on where the improvements are, what improvements we're going after, who should be in, who should be out, right? I think for starters, it will be a good idea to include all the homes around this area so that we can capture those exterior improvements that look pretty bad and in desperate need of work and help. So this again is on our website, and it's just a starting point, right? This is just another picture showing you what we call Team 310. Here's Cypress Point. This part here does not have an assessment district, Country Club Estates, and River Ridge here in the middle. And that's what it looks like from the satellite view, which you're very familiar with. Now, what we heard from you in the survey included a lot of priorities. One that came at the top of the list is public safety, but I'm going to let Danielle address public safety a little bit here before we move on, because it's sort of a different animal and how it needs to be treated and what we can actually do with this effort versus really not a good use of this effort.
Thank you, Pablo. So public safety, of course, it is a #1 priority. But with this program, what we're looking to do is meet the needs of the community through possible funding mechanism and potential volunteer work. Public safety isn't really set up to be funded through a special financing mechanism like this because what you would be paying wouldn't get you the direct return that you would get from funding maintenance of landscaping, something like that. So if you pay we pay into public safety through, say, a special tax, you're not going to get an officer in your community that's dedicated solely to your community and only patrols your area. So that's just not something that would happen. So that's really the reason we're not including it in this program. While I do think that the Citizens Committee that we are creating can do a lot on the volunteer side for public safety, funding of that wouldn't be included. So once we get to the Citizens Committee, there are a ton of resources that the police department for the city has available to share. There's neighborhood watch information, there's training and resources for that, there's Eyes on Crime, the STOPS team, there's a whole bunch of, they already have created, crime prevention flyers. There's a lot of resources out there that we can give to you and that group to share with the community on ways to increase public safety. But the funding portion of that isn't something that we think you would benefit from in the same manner as you will with the others. And that's the same for homelessness as well, because there are so many very large programs that are dedicated to helping with these issues. Specific funding from your community won't give you the same return that it would for the others. So we will post, the City of Oxnard has a whole website with the county with a lot of resources, to numbers to call and people to contact if there is someone who's been displaced and needs housing assistance. As you see, if there's any homeless encampments starting in your community, there's numbers you can call so we can get people out there right away. And we will share that information on CivicMic.com, as well as with the Citizens Committee that will be created, and make sure that that information does get dispersed to your community. But that will primarily be volunteer work. All of those solutions will come strictly from volunteer work. I hope I covered that good. Clearly enough. So,
good.
Yeah, go ahead, Pablo.
Okay. So I'm going to actually answer a question here. I think you find this very helpful. I really, really encourage you. First of all, the city has a page dedicated to each assessment district. And in fact, the whole special district division has every district, assessment district in the city, along with the CFDs and other types of districts they have already set up. So there's a lot of information available at the city website under the special district divisions page. Okay. Very important that you make a note of that, because the city website is large, it's huge. But in our website, we also have a lot of information already for you. Early on, I introduced you to the main page for Oxnard, right? Which will be this main page here. And there's a lot in there, and you can peruse at your own, with your own time. But in the data center, you can see it right here. Okay. This is one of the questions posted here. You'll obviously see the organizational chart. You'll see the description of these maintenance levels of service, the B and the A that I described earlier. B is every 2 weeks for mowing and trimming. That's where you are right now. A will be weekly, and you can look at all this. But and there's inspection reports, all sorts of information. But I want to scroll down real quick to a couple of things. These district facts you'll find very helpful, right? You can pull these up, look at River Ridge. You can tell when it was created, if it has is it in perpetuity, if it has an inflator or not, and what level of service you're getting. If you scroll down and you start it all over again, you can see what the max rate is per year, per unit, how many homes are there, what the total amount of the assessment is, and what it pays for. But better yet, if you scroll down a little more, you can actually get the maps to show you what is being maintained. I'm going to go back here to River Ridge, right in here. And here you can see that what the assessment is really paying for is the maintenance of the entrances right here for River Ridge, all around that. And it describes here for you, as well as these trees right here and here. Notice nothing on the outside, right? No trees on the outside whatsoever. Well, not here, but around here. And so the same is the case for Country Club Estates, a little bit there and a little bit here, okay? All this information is in our website at the data center, very easy to find. And I hope you take the time to review that, because we went through a lot of work to make that available for you and your committee so that you can share with everybody else, okay? Now, from the survey, public safety was number one, like Danielle said, and then you can see the scores here. The lower the number, the more important it was to you. So they were ranked, right, in order of importance. So a lower number means it's top of the list. Obviously, the maintenance of the streets and the inside and outside was top of the list. It makes sense. The inside is at a B, the outside is an F, or maybe worse than an F, I will say. And second by the one in the inside, landscaping on the outside, the nearby parks. There were some mentions, rankings about maintaining nearby parks, street lighting. And these down here, when we ask about others, these can all easily be added to the improvements here. So we will capture that. We can help you figure out a solution for everything on this list other than homelessness, public safety, and stormwater. And I say stormwater because that is a whole different animal. Though there may be a component for stormwater, stormwater is a much larger project that involves, it's more of a citywide. And so there may be a component to it, but it's probably, again, not the best use of your funds. You will not get a one-to-one return, right? Some of it you can, but it wouldn't be as easy as everything else here on the list. So these are the things sort of we're going to work with you on with the committee to try to figure out what this really means, right? What is it that you really want, and then figure how much that costs. Some of the other questions we had in there was about the involvement of an HOA. And unlike other communities where there were no HOA, we don't want an HOA, we don't want to have one involved, here was very much a split. So we really don't have an answer on this. And again, not everybody took the survey. This is what we need a citizen committee to kind of help us out to figure out, will an HOA be able to help you in any way? Will an HOA be able to take over improvements, or what their role would be? 47% of those that took the survey were interested in doing some sort of volunteering work, right? Maybe like a once a year, twice a year cleanup event, or helping the city replant, or things like that. So that's actually very, very helpful. Back to the defined services, I just want to emphasize it's very important that you know what they mean, because we'll use them throughout the process, right? So when we talk about A and B and F, F, as you can see, is quarterly. So you know the city general budget. So these are the maintenance levels for the landscaping and lighting districts that Jerry runs, the special districts division. The city's general fund doing once a year, and the exterior is not even in our chart. We don't have that. We don't have a level that talks about once a year. For us, we feel like F is already bad enough. So if you only have any work done on your landscaping every quarter, it really looks bad. Imagine what it looks like once a year, okay? So this is just a quick summary. I just show you where you can get it at the data center. So when we are running budgets, we will shoot for an A or a B level and figure out what that costs, right? So what does an outcome look like, right? That's what are we hoping for? Well, ideally, we will do something, come up with a solution that is going to be managed by the special districts division. And I say that because that is the best way for you to get transparency and accountability. It's a small group. It's only one place to go. You don't have to run all over the city. You know who to call. You have dedicated staff. This is the only thing they do, right? They do your district along with others, but they're not doing everything through the city, just these communities. So I really feel strongly that that's the best way for you to get the most bang for your buck. We have to add some ongoing transparency. Traditionally, Danielle and I, we do a lot of this work for many cities, and and we can tell you that even for us, it's hard to get reports out of the city, in even more reports that we can read and understand. The city has been using for many years a very, very old accounting system and finance system. So currently the city is actually going through a process of replacing that system with something more modern from this age. And because of that, we should be able to create a dashboard or some sort of a solution that allows us to get ongoing reporting a lot easier, that we can share with everybody and make it a part of this process, where the solution must have that. It's not something that's going to happen now only, but rather something that stays in place as a requirement for the city to provide to you on an ongoing basis. I think that's very, very important and much needed. Whatever solution we have must rehabilitate the improvements in the inside, even though they're a B. I am sure there's a lot of work to be done, because I have seen B level, and I know that even at B, there are things that don't look the same as they used to. So we want to take care of those improvements in the interior and bring them up to level A, or level, if they're already a B, I will bring them up to level A. And I say A, but we'll run the budget both ways, right? We'll run numbers on A and B. But think about water. If we start at B, whatever inflator we put on a solution, let's say we increase taxes, whatever we do, an inflator is probably going to be around 2% per year, right? In my experience, 3% is now well supported by residents. 2% is the sweet spot. Well, water doesn't follow that at all. Water increases are 13%, they're 25% on a given year. It just happens. City really doesn't have an option. So ideally, we want to start with something that brings everything to A level and try to keep it at A level as long as possible, because really, even with an inflator, you're not going to keep up, okay? So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that even whatever solution we come up with, right, and whatever inflator we put is probably going to be around 2%, and it's not going to last forever. At some point, you'll be back in this situation. All we're trying to do is buy as much time as possible, because particularly water doesn't follow any rules. I feel that we must capture the outside of the improvements, the exterior improvements. Now, as a community, you may decide you don't want to do that, and that's okay. I feel like strongly that will give you the best sense of ownership and pride for your homes, will increase your values as you approach those major intersections. But it is really something that you're going to have to decide as all of you talk to each other and figure out what these budgets look like. We're going to run budgets on both levels of service A and B, and with and without the exterior improvements, right? We're going to run all those scenarios for you, and then you'll get to make a decision on what you want to pay for. Most importantly, we're going to meet with you, figure out if there's anything new you want to add to this effort. Currently, the maintenance district is not able to pay for all types of things. The maintenance district that you have is very, very outdated. Jerry mentioned at some point that some of the streets are not authorized, right? She meant the improvements are not authorized. That means the documents don't provide for those improvements to be maintained from your maintenance district, right? That's because this was created many years ago. The law has changed tremendously. When I started in the industry, assessment districts were great. We love maintenance districts. Now, not so much. So many lawsuits, so many changes, they're very, very outdated. These days, the best solution is what we call a community facilities district. You may also know this as a Mello-Roos. You probably heard that word before. Those are very, very flexible. We can do capital improvements. We can do all sorts of stop signs, speed bumps, street resurfacing, whatever you want to do, a CFD can do. We can figure that out. The formula is very flexible. We can get really creative with them and address all of your needs, right? There's a couple of things with them. There's one thing that is really a problem with the CFD. They require a 2/3 approval by the registered voters, okay? Within the boundaries of the district. So I show you what your whole area is, right? River Park, Cypress Point, all of that. Whoever is registered using an address inside of that boundary is going to get a ballot, right? For this CFD, let's say, that is going to fix all your problems, right? And we're gonna count those ballots, and they come from registered voters, not property owners. Very important. Registered voters. That means your renters are going to vote, right? Now, if you are an owner that are also registered, then you both vote, right? We only count the ballots that are returned, okay? So if people don't submit a ballot, they're not counted. And then we look for 2/3, okay? 2/3 is a very, very high threshold. It is the main reason why we need a working group. We need a citizens committee. Because if we send a ballot out, right, what's going to happen is people are going to go, oh, no more taxes, right? And they're going to immediately just go ahead and say no. Well, one of the things we want to do is to actually, if we do a CFD, is to replace what you have, right? Your existing assessment will go away. You will never be charged for that, and you will only be charged for whatever this new Mello-Roos charge is. Well, if you don't explain that, if people don't know that, because that if you don't, they're not part of the process, they will assume that this is a completely new tax, when in reality is more of an increase of what you currently have, right? Because what you have is going to go away. And that's why we need your participation in this committee. There's one more thing I wanted to say, but I just cannot remember. It'll come back to me. We have a lot of flexibility with a CFD. We can create different improvement areas. We can capture many types of improvements. And so by far gives us the ability to do the most for you, right? So that's ideally what we want to do, okay? But again, it really depends on what you want at the end of the day, and what involvement you as a community or your HOAs want to have. Very good. Into this process, we need to create an ongoing citizen group, right? If we don't end up with some sort of a landscaping committee or whatever you want to call it, a group that is going to represent you on an ongoing basis with the city, particularly the Special Districts Division, then we're going to be back here eventually, right? So we want to have a participant group that stays in touch. We will provide you with all the tools that you need, but that's one of the most important things, and we'll make that part of the documents, right? So that occurs. As part of the same documents coming out of this process, we'd love to create something like a dashboard. And you are all familiar with dashboards now after COVID, where you can see, all the numbers very easily. With this new system that the city's getting, we should be able to create a dashboard that shows, how many inspections are happening, how well they're going, what the fund balances are, what the budget looks like. We can create anything. Really, we can. It's a matter of figuring that out and setting that up from the get-go and making that part of the process, right, and the solutions. So I think that's very, very important because we get that question a lot. Like there's a lot of distrust in this city from its residents for what the city's doing with their money, right? So that, I think, is a necessary component in order to get support for that 2/3. And then we'll go through the list. This list here came from your comments. Things that are not currently being paid for, like lighting, sidewalks is a major problem, street resurfacing, street sweeping, all these things can be included. Yes, indeed. And I heard some comments about traffic issues. All those improvements can be paid for by a Melrose. We could not do any of this, okay? So if we look at this, if you wanted to mix street resurfacing with the light landscaping, that cannot be done with your existing maintenance district. Assessment districts are very silo. They can only pay for a couple of little things, and then you go to another assessment district type, and then another one, and another one, and another one. A Melrose can do all of it. It's very hybrid, very flexible. So that's why a Melrose is your best solution. Otherwise, you end up with multiple solutions and multiple rates on your property tax bill. Desired outcomes, absolutely, we love your participation. In fact, we at a minimum need this bottom one. We need a standing committee. Without it, this will not pass, okay? This effort will not move forward much further because we here only have 27 people out of hundreds in this community, right, of homes. And so we're not gonna get to a point where we can get anything approved unless it's a group of citizens that organizes with our support, goes door to door, and make sure that we can explain everything to everybody. We reach out and everybody is engaged. Now, there are other opportunities. There could be replanting events, trash cleanup events that could be scheduled where you're assisting the city, the Special Districts Division. That will help save costs, right? And it may be a nice civic event for you to have. There may be some other assets in the community, maybe companies that will be willing to bid and do the work at a much lower price than others. There could be people with expertise, arborists or things like that, right? People that deal with street maintenance. We have another community where there's a nonprofit organization, as I mentioned earlier, willing and able to help and do work. These things we do not know about you because we have not been able to work with you and be organized to know who is there and what you can do. And you can do all of it or none of it, but at a minimum, we need a committee, okay? So next steps. We are in no rush, right, to go through this process and start the formation of any financing mechanism that will replace what you have now. And I say that because starting that process that involves resolutions, a special tax consultant, all this additional work and development of city council is going to cost money, right? So it could easily start as low as $35,000. We do not want to go through this in a rush and go put forth, okay, city, go ahead and pay $35,000, which is going to come from your fund balances, by the way, to start this process that is going to fail. We need to work with you, provide support to you, and make sure that we can ascertain that indeed, if we went to ballot, 2/3 is a thing that we can win, right? That's when we start the process. That's when we actually start. By that point, we will know what we're paying for, what it looks like, at what level do you want it, who's involved. We should know everything by then, and then start that process, which is the formal process of creating a new district. So next steps are, I need you to volunteer. We really need some of you, ideally from different pockets of this team area, right, to represent your community, to work with Danielle, the city, and I on reaching out and getting this information out. Note Danielle's email, dwood@civicmic.com. Please email her. This information, again, will be available to you within days when we post it to the website. In case you forget the address, you can always find it on our website. We will work with you at that point, ascertaining, okay, what's a first good run for a budget. We'll go to the city, work with them on creating a budget, separate the interior from the exterior, make sure we got it all figured out for you. Come back, meet with the committee, work through that, and do that multiple times. I foresee many iterations of this process until we find a place where, okay, that seems something that it seems like something you're happy with, something the committee can sell and can work with other residents on supporting. We'll do a survey or some sort of a petition process at that point. And once we're all happy and we feel like, yep, this is going to happen, we'll initiate the formal process of forming a new district. Timeline-wise, this question was asked yesterday, so I'll offer it today. Well, I feel that we're probably not going to get to that point where we know everything that we want until probably 6 months from now. It's going to take a little while, right? It's going to be a few meetings. So let's say we get to a point in September or October where we know what we want, we know what the budget looks like, you have gone out, and indeed the community seems to support that effort, that rate, that is an estimate, right? Then we can initiate the formation of Melrose, let's say, if that's the solution you want. That will take another 6 to 8 months to finish. So ballots wouldn't be going out until probably April, May of 2022, which means that a new charge will not show up on your tax bill, replacing an existing charge, until December of 22, right? Which means is that you wouldn't see money, because the city wouldn't actually get the money until December of 22, so you wouldn't see the improvements beginning to be fixed up until January of 23. Okay, so it is a long process, right? The biggest hurdle, in my opinion, is not the formation process that happens with city council. It's very, it's just paperwork and requirements by law. The biggest hurdle is this: communicating with all of you and the residents and making sure we have 2/3 support. Well, that took a long time. Hope I didn't lose anybody there. Well, Danielle, you can go ahead and take some questions now.
Okay, we have a couple, but I'm going to go backwards here just because this one's about the size of the committee. There's a question: what is the anticipated size of the committee, and will there be an end date or term for members? The anticipated size, is really dependent on the effort put forth by those who are involved. So while we'd like to see more individuals as possible, because that helps spread the workload, we've worked with committees that have had 4 members and have been much more successful and influential than groups that have 15. So there's not really I think that's different for each community and depends on who's on the committee there. As far as an end date and a term for members, that's something we would definitely talk about as the committee gets going, because this is something we'd want to continue over time. And of course, if you volunteer now, that doesn't mean that you're going to be stuck with this for the next 10 years and no one's going to take your place. There will be information and a process on how we can get new members in over time and share that load with some other members of the community. So that's something we'll definitely discuss. The other question is, how can I better understand which improvements in my River Ridge area are the responsibility of the LMD and are the responsibility of the HOA? And
that's what I showed earlier, the map of improvements and boundaries at the data center. And the city has the same maps as well. In fact, the city has we do too, a GIS platform that shows all this, but you can easily find that in the data center, and you come down to maps of improvements, you load that up, and then you scroll until you find your district. That's Country Club Estates there. Something also worth mentioning, go back to the main page. Sometimes we get this question, if there's something happening in the interior currently, or even in the exterior, but if you want to report a problem of any kind, the city uses the 311 system. They have it on the website. We have it in our website on the main page for you. You can just click in here. It's going to load. It brings you to the City of Oxnard. This is a 311 platform. And you can see here on the left, you can report graffiti, illegal dumping, any street issues like the broken sidewalks. It's definitely happening. Abandoned vehicles, homelessness. And then down here, you have assessment district requests. So when you put something in here, that is for the Special Districts Division, and it's kept by the 311 system. You get this map, and it tells you what's happening with your requests and so on and so on. So all sorts of things in here that you can, this is the best way to report a problem to the city, and that's how they track everything. This 311 for the assessment district portion is something we would like to capture, right, into your new dashboard under this new solution. It'll be something where you go to 311, you put it in here, right? But then we also report it as what is the response rate for requests related to the new solution. So you can see that in your dashboard. I think it will be a great way to show progress and how much the city's working on your stuff that you're paying for.
The next question there is there an estimate of the cost per resident for Melrose tax? And the answer to that is no, not at this time, because we need to get more individuals involved in your community to find out what the true priorities are, and then determine if there is a desire to move forward with funding some of these improvements. If there isn't, then we won't even get to that step. You know, if no one wants to be part of a citizens committee and everyone's just kind of okay with how it is now, then the city doesn't want to use your time or money to try and move this forward if that's not the desire of the community. So we don't have that information and estimate of that at this time.
That's the process, right? That's the things that we're talking about, the iteration process, right? So if there's interest and there's a committee form, and yes, it's the first thing that we would do is to run some sort of a model and show you what that looks like. And that may be the end of it, right? You may say, okay, forget that. Take the exteriors out. Okay, we'll do that. Take the exterior improvements out. And we can, or take the sidewalks out or whatever. That is, it's a process that we have to go through to the point where we find consensus on what you feel as a group will be something that can be supported by 2/3, right, of the registered voters on an election. That's very important.
Were you going to share this here?
Yeah, I have it on the screen. So this is, I have a few pages of this capital improvement program document I mentioned earlier. You can download the full document here. I think it's very, very helpful. At least even for me, as familiar as I am with the city, it was very educational to see really what's happening at the city, what the needs are, right? And the pressures that the general fund is under. And I think I showed earlier how much of your money that you do pay a lot of taxes, but unfortunately is not going to the city. Not most of it, by far. City's getting very little of your money. And then most of it goes to public safety. So then really all these projects, they depend on grant money, they depend on federal matching funds or money the city really doesn't have. And at our website, you can see some of the highlights. but essentially, if you go here to the beginning, it's very easy to see the total cost of the needs that the city has, right? And you can see they have 116 owned buildings. You can see their condition, the kind of work they need to be replaced. IT needs investments. Here's that page that I mentioned, all the things I got from here, the 53 parks and number of acres of landscape medians and parkways, which is not really landscape currently, to be honest. On a once a year schedule, this 129 acres doesn't look really good at all. And that's throughout the city. And then the number of trees and all that. So it's worth to take a minute to kind of review this. This is what I described about the street improvements, the resurfacing. You can see this is the 70 PCI that they want, which is very standard. That's not just Oxnard. Most cities, this is what you shoot for, right? And this is where they have been. So right now it's sort of going down, and so, you know, that's a big need. And there's some more information here that I think you'll find very useful. So something I recommend that you take the time to read. I just took a few of the pages out for you, but you can download the whole document right here in our homepage for Oxnard. Okay.
Is there any other questions from anyone that didn't submit in the chat that would just like to ask a question? You can say your name and then ask a question if you have one. George, yes. You can we'll need you to unmute. There
okay.
You go.
Yeah, thank you. I'm my property is between Spyglass Trail. I'm on Spyglass Trail, and the back of my property is on Gonzales. And I've lived here for 30 years, and in those 30 years, the trees and the bushes on Gonzales and the trees on Spyglass have never been trimmed or pruned. The trees and bushes on Gonzales are over 20 feet tall now, and they're hanging into my yard about 10 feet. And then the ones in the front, as a number of people have found, have broken my water main. The roots have broken my water main and broken sprinkler pipes. My question is, when and if would these trees and bushes be pruned? And if there's no plan for it, you mentioned 60 years is a long time. Mm-hmm. May I trim, prune, or remove them? And if the answer to that is no, may I hire an arborist at my cost or a landscaper to trim or prune them?
Jerry, you want to address, because I know there's some rules about the city trees and what private citizens can do, right?
Yeah, so as far as a maintenance schedule for exterior improvements, I don't have that at my ready. That is something that is provided by the General Fund Parks Maintenance Manager. And so I can find out when that area is anticipated to be have landscaping managed. With regards to removal or pruning yourself or having an arborist come and prune, at this point, it is against city policy to have someone that is not either employed or contracted with the city take care of that. I know that in the past there have been some maintenance agreements with HOAs and the requirement to utilize city approved contractors for such a task. And that's something that we can explore if you as a resident wants to embark on something like that.
George, I can further add to that. The residents here might be interested in tuning into next Thursday's special city council meeting, where they're going to set the priorities for the Measure E spending. So they're not going to set the dollar amounts, but they're going to set the priorities. And this is going to get the ball rolling for the budgeting process. And so in that meeting, you'll see where they rank these general benefit areas, such as Gonzales and these trees, and where they're going to be prioritized. And then it's going to be up to staff for the budget process to bring to the city council a program to meet their priorities. So this is something that may be addressed in the next fiscal year. We'll just have to wait and see where it comes on the priorities and then where funding comes through Measure E. But this is one of the priorities that you, the residents, voted in for the passage of Measure E, was so areas like this could be maintained again.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Anyone in the group? Not to put you in a competition with other groups, but the meeting we had last night, we had 4 volunteers for the committee before the meeting was over. So I'm keeping an eye on my email here. Just putting that out there.
And that's dwood@civicmic.com. Okay. Well, and you checked everybody on the phone. If there are no more questions, we will monitor the email, but we'll reach out again. We'll send an email out. Again, what will happen in the next week, we have multiple meetings. So we'll this video will be made available through our website. I believe all of you have signed up to receive updates. So that means the moment the video goes live, you will receive an update, an email with that link. In any case, I normally send a separate email anyway to let you know. I'll share the slides we shared tonight, all the links. You will get Danielle's email address again, and we'll make a request that for volunteers again through that email to you, because that's really what sets the process in motion. If we are not able to establish some sort of a citizens committee, we really can't move much further. Because we definitely don't want to spend your money on more meetings, on creating something that is not going to pass. 2/3, in my experience, been doing this for a long time, absolutely requires your involvement and the involvement of a committee that is dedicated to go door to door and have meetings on site. And again, we'll support that all the way. You're not alone. We will be there with you. If we cannot currently, because we're COVID, we will do Zoom meetings. I've held meetings in Oxnard before at people's homes when we could go there, which is always nice because most of those meetings, they're cookies, and I love cookies or, muffins. And I really enjoy the time I spend with you, with residents in Oxnard, and I'll do it again. But without that, there's absolutely no chance for a solution that requires 2/3 vote to pass. And we don't want to waste your money. And again, we don't want to waste your time. So your involvement in the creation of this committee is paramount and a requirement for this process to go forward. So we look forward to hearing from you soon. Jerry, anything from you, Steve? Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here. I know that it takes, effort and time. We appreciate your participation. You have a fantastic day. You can always reach out. You all have my email by now. And you can send me any questions at any time. Thank you.